Hello, fiber friends. Welcome to another episode of the Knit, Knot, and Weave podcast. My name is Dorothy, and I am coming to you from Columbia, Maryland. This is my little corner of the YouTube where I talk about and document my fibery adventures with you all. Most of the time, it is knitting or crochet projects. Other times, there could be a little bit of weaving or spinning or yarn dyeing, or any other crafty shenanigans that I get up to. So, if this sounds like something you are interested in, grab a cup of something to drink, grab a project to work on, and come and join me. Hello, friends. Like I said, my name is Dorothy, and I am in Columbia, Maryland. Columbia is approximately halfway between Baltimore City and Washington, D.C. Today, I have two finished projects to share with you. I have 4 whips to update you guys on. I have just a few acquisitions to share, a couple of books to share, and I think that's about it. So in my last podcast, I had mentioned that I was heading out for a girls' weekend. There is a group of my friends that we go away every February. Usually it is on President's Day weekend, so that we can make it a 3-day weekend so that nobody has to take an extra day off, since Monday is a federal holiday. And we all know a 3-day weekend crafting with friends is always more fun than a 2-day weekend crafting with friends. So we head up there. We usually go up Friday and we stay until Monday. We rent a lovely house up there, and the woman that rents the house, we have her cook our dinner meals for us. She is a fabulous cook. And we just sort of hang out and craft and knit and crochet and laugh and drink some wine. We had a lovely fire going this year. It was so nice. We had some snow, so it all felt so nice and warm and cozy. Aside from that, work has been a little crazy. We are getting ready to do our extended essay projects with the IB kids. For those of you that are not in education, IB is International Baccalaureate Program. It was started for diplomat children who were constantly moving around, back and forth between countries. And this is a program that is done around the world. So the curriculum is the same no matter where you are, and it is a whole different way of teaching kids. We're supposed to be teaching kids by their curiosity and really getting them to think critically, and their extended essay is one of the culminating pieces of this program. They have to write a 4,000 word paper, which is roughly around 15 pages. And we are in the beginning stages. The kids have whittled down and have narrowed down what topic they want to do, what really interests them, and what subject matter it would fall under. So we have people writing history papers, some are writing literature and film papers. We have some global issue papers. And this year, the teacher that teaches the class did something a little differently with her kids. And it definitely shows in the kids' excitement. So she did a kind of like a mind mapping game with them, or no, word association. That was, I think, what she said. and she would just randomly, you know, she had a list of, I think she said 40 or 50 words, and she would just say the word, and the kids were supposed to write down like 4 or 5 words, the, you know, first 4 or 5 words that came to their minds that somehow related to the word that she shared. And when they were all done, they were supposed to take a look at everything and see what commonalities they could find. And then from there, they were formulating their research questions. And so this year I have seen a real spark of interest and excitement in these kids, because they weren't limited by previous knowledge to work on a project. So the IB program sort of encourages that, you know, if they're going to write something that has to do with psychology, that they have taken a psychology or a psychology class sometime prior to taking their EE course. And so this year the teacher decided to ixnay that because she didn't like the results that she got last year. She had kids that weren't very interested in writing. And I agree with her, because studies have shown that when kids are seriously interested in learning about something, they can read above their grade level and they are more enthusiastic to learn about it. So we met with approximately 75 students over the last 2 weeks. They come to us with their research question. We try to refine it to either narrow it down to something that would be more realistic, that could be written in 4,000 words, or we try and really hone in on what exactly it is they are interested in writing. So that's been a lot of fun. And the last thing I did was I actually registered for 2 workshops during the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. I unfortunately looked at classes a little too late, so there were a few classes that I really wanted that were totally full. But I did get into Grand and Glorious Gradients with Peggy Dooney, and that's going to be an all-day course on Friday. And then I signed up to take a course with Jillian Moreno, and I'm so excited about that one. It is Mix It Up, the basics of combining color with grades. And she has one other course that I am seriously considering, but probably shouldn't, because that would mean I would have to take another half a day off work. But she is teaching a half-day course on grist, and I guess what exactly it is and how it affects your yarn, or the yarn that you spin up. And grist has always been like this myth of something to me. I don't really know about it, and I thought that would be a great course, but I really wanted these other 2 first. So anywho, let's get on to the knitting or the crafting. So what I am wearing today is, it's a little chilly in my house because it's, again, Maryland weather. It has dropped a little. So I just grabbed one of my Vertices United shawls. This is my Halloween one that I knit up a number of years ago. This is my second one I think I've knit. And I've dyed all the colors for it. And I used a black in almost every section for the stripings. So I got the green for Halloween for the monsters, white for ghosts, purple, because I don't know, purple always seems to be a Halloween color, red for vampires and blood, and then orange for jack-o'-lanterns. So I tend to only wear this in October because it screams Halloween. But like I said, I was chilly tonight, and it's the first thing that I grabbed. If you are looking for other places to find me out on the internet, I will post here a list of of sites that you can find me on. I am on Ravelry as Felia. I am on Instagram as Knit, Knot, and Weave. I have a Facebook page for Knit, Knot, and Weave. I am on Blue Sky as Knit, Knot, and Weave. I do have a Ko-Fi account under Knit, Knot, and Weave. Any donations to the Ko-Fi account will go to cover any prizes that I need to ship out. And I have a Gmail account under Knit, Knot, and Weave. So if you want to ask me anything that I didn't explain further or I didn't share in the notes below, you can shoot me a message on any of those platforms and I will be happy to respond. So let's move on to finished objects. So my first finished object is a little cute crocheted object. It is my Hug Monster. Is he not adorable? Or she? So when I last showed him, he was pretty much all done. I didn't have a face on him and I didn't have his little tail. So he is or she, whatever, is a free pattern on Ravelry and it is called the Hug Monster. Yes I do. Linda Salant is the designer. The pattern did not call for safety eyes. It actually had you cut felt, but I didn't like the look of the felt and so I took them off and I found these cute little eyes on Etsy along with the mouth, and he will be living in my craft room whenever I finish it. He's so adorable. So he was crocheted with some leftover sweet roll yarn that I had. That's why there's the line change. And then the yellow and the purple were just some acrylics that I had left over in my bin of leftovers of acrylics. So that is the first project done. And then next up is a project you haven't seen. We had a sort of a knit along in our knitting group. There was a bunch of women that are getting ready to go on an Icelandic cruise this July. And this hat came out and a whole bunch of them decided they wanted to knit it for the cruise. I am not going on the cruise because it is out of my price range, but I did want to do the hat. So the hat is the Vestvind Hat by Inger Berg. It is a $5.13 pattern on Ravelry. And here it is. Is a beautiful colorwork beautiful colorwork hat. I used Sunday Morning DK, so Saunders Yarns. The colorways were Cloud and Radio Flyer. Unfortunately, the Radio Flyer looks way more orangey than it does red to me in person. But it was a very fun knit. It has a nice sturdy double brimmed hat. So it should be very warm and comfortable on the ears. It was knit on a 3.25 millimeter needle. So that is a US 3. And I will show you my floats inside because they came out so lovely. And I'm very, very pleased with how this hat came out. I will not be keeping this one for myself. This will probably, it will probably go in the gift basket for somebody, but I do want to make this pattern again. I'm going to look through my stash and see if I have a yarn that's a little bit more red, because I really want a red and white hat. And yeah, I love how the hat comes into a nice peak at the top. It's really neat. And this was knit for, I am participating in Happy Little Yarn, Amy from Happy Little Yarn, and Andrea from Craft All the Things podcast. They are hosting a year-long knit-along called Stitch Quest. They had what was it? What they call it? A quest, I think. It was their first quest, and we had to knit a hat that would foil a witches trying to read our minds. And so this was my hat. And I said that her attempts would get caught in the grids because these red target lines here were all blocked off all the way around, and she couldn't get into my brain. So again, that is the Vestavind hat, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you are new to color work, this was a pretty easy color work pattern to follow. Several of the women in my group were brand new to color work and did do the hat. They had no issues. And if I can get them all together, I will try and post a picture of all of our hats up here. If not now, maybe the next episode. And that is all I have for finished objects right now. So, moving on to whips. So my whips are again heavy in blankets. I think last time I shared that I had finished a tulip stitch blanket, and I was having so much fun with that stitch that I started a second blanket, and I am having so much fun with that stitch that I almost had this blanket completely finished. So I'm going to lose it. So here we are. I am using, what is it called? It's Classic Studio by Nicole. It was an AC Moore brand. Unfortunately, AC Moore has gone the way of the dodo birds, and it would seem that, unfortunately, as sad as it sounds, Joann's is going to be heading that way too. But you could see, I think I didn't put a marker in, but last time I shared this, I only had about this much done, and you can see that I have almost a full blanket now. This yarn is the softest acrylic I have ever used, and it is such a shame that nobody picked up this brand when AC Moore closed down. And I am really afraid that that's going to happen with Big Twist, that no one's going to pick that up when Joann officially closes. But in here I have 7 skeins so far, and I am at the end of my 7th skein. Didn't even have enough to do another row. So when I start the 8th skein, I'm going to lay this out and see how long it is, because I don't want to make another mistake with that. And I will explain that when I share the next blanket I'm going to share with you all. And then I'm going to block off the edge at the top. And I haven't decided if I'm going to put a border around this. I tend to put borders around all my blankets just to make it a nice and even and all the way around. And I probably could do one. I haven't decided how I'm going to do it. It may just be a simple single crochet and then maybe a crab stitch to file it off. But so that is one whip down. Oh, it's so warm and squishy. And let me roll up this little bit of yarn before it gets tangled with something. I think it's gonna, pretty soon it's gonna be time to put away all my blankets that I haven't finished, but this one I will have finished by the next episode. The other two I'm going to share with you today, probably not. So next up is my Jellyroll blanket. And this is what I meant when I said I made a mistake. So when I was on our little girls' weekend, I finally managed to lay out my Jellyroll blanket and my Franken blanket to get actual measurements. And unfortunately, this one was a little short. It was only 53 inches in length, and it had originally stopped right here, so all the way across, but at that row it was 53, and then I had to add 7 more inches. I went back through my stash. I managed to find a few of the colors that I had ended the columns with, so I was able to build them back up and be able to stagger them, which was nice. And you can't tell that I've added that unless you look at the back, so we're not going to look at the back. But so it is now 60 inches tall, and 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36 inches wide. So I'm thinking probably 2 more columns, 36, 4, nope, 3 more columns at least, 48 inches wide. Yeah, at least 3 more columns. Last time I shared this on here, I did move the stitch marker, the progress keeper, where is it? So last time I shared it, I had just finished this gray and brown patch here. So I managed to get almost a whole nother column added. And I am right here. And I have approximately this much more to go. I am putting all the tops on a barber cord so that it'll be easy for me to pick up all the stitches when I need to do the I-cord edging. And that is where I am with the Jellyroll blanket. Now, a friend had said, you know, couldn't you make up the inches that I was missing when I blocked it? And I probably could, because this is garter, but then you kind of lose, first of all, you would lose that garter squish factor if you block it out. And second of all, the I-cord edging would not really allow it to block, because the I-cord edging isn't as stretchy as garter. So I definitely had to add some more if I wanted it to be the length that I wanted it. I tend to like my blankets to be a little bit longer than normal because I like to hook my feet into them so that my toesies stay nice and warm. And if I'm laying down, I like to have the blanket all the way up to my neck to stay nice and warm, because as you can see, my couch, the way my living room is laid out, my couch is right in front of big windows, and the windows are old. They need to be replaced, but I don't have that kind of money, so it can be a little bit drafty over here. But anywho, the Jellyroll blanket is a $6.25 $6.25 pattern on Ravelry. It was designed by Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears. And I'm sure you've all heard of this blanket because so many other YouTubers are working on it right now. And that is it. I will probably, I don't know if it'll be done by the next podcast, but I will probably finish this column and then put it away for the summer, for the spring and summer, because I can't have all of this wool in my lap and not sweat to death. So that is the Jellyroll blanket. Next up is my mom's sweater. I am happy to say that I have finished the sleeves. So the sleeves are all done. I attempted to do a sewn bind off, and I think that worked out pretty well, and it's still nice and stretchy. See the, I don't know if you could really see it because it's getting a little blown out over here, but it makes a nice rounded edge. I wish I had done a tubular cast on for the neck so that it could all match. And the body is now at its correct length, but when my mom tried it on last, I was telling her that I was thinking of doing a split hem for it instead of all one, because I've noticed that a lot of the sweaters, a lot of the tops that she wears are 3/4 sleeve and they tend to have split hem. And she wanted to go one step further, where she would like the front and back to have just a little bit of a curve to it. So I'm trying to figure out how that's going to work. And I'm thinking, so I put in stitch markers to mark the sides. So I'm thinking that I'm going to go back and forth and do short rows, and maybe 5. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe 5 doing, what am I trying to say? Doing the, more than likely it'll be the German short rows, and leaving 5 stitches each time until it looks like a nice rounded edge. And then I will do the front, then I will do the back in the same manner. I'm debating on making the back just a little bit longer. I don't know how that's going to look. I've never tried that with the rounded bottom on both sides. And then I will put basically another 1.5 inch 1x1 ribbing at the bottom so that all the ends meet. And then I will more than likely do a sewn bind off so that it can match the sleeves. And then it'll get a nice blocking. And then when my mom is here at the end of this month for my niece's bridal shower, she will get her sweater. And I will be all done with that. This has been forever in the making, and I will be happy when it is finished. And I should have plenty of yarn. I may even have a skein or 2 left over at the end. Don't know what I'm going to do with it. Maybe another hat for donation or something. And then last up is my granny square blanket that I have decided to use the Knit Pick Shine Sport that I had in my stash. A number of years ago, I had bought oh God, what did I buy? I think two or three skeins of each color that they had at the time, because one of my nieces wanted a rainbow blanket. And so it's, as we all know, it's very difficult to see how the colors actually look online. And since I knew I wanted to use this yarn, I bought, like I said, I think it was like two or three skeins of each color. And then I just, once they were here, I managed to lay them all out and create a rainbow that I liked with the colors that we had. And these were leftover colors that did not make their way into her blanket, and they're all pretty much light pastel pale colors. And last time I shared this project with you guys, I had 3 of each color made. So there was a yellow, a light pink, like a spearmint green, a light lilac, a sky blue, and a slightly darker purple. I don't know what you would call that. Lavender, maybe. So I had 3 of those. And then because each skein had a little nugget left over, I thought I would try and see if I could get maybe a couple of mixed squares. So here's one that I've done so far. And I'm hoping that, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to kick the stand. I am hoping that I can get maybe 4 out of these. And this could either be the center of the blanket, or it could be the 4 corners of the blanket. Depends on how I decide to lay everything out. So that was the first one I did. And then I just started with the colors again, and I have 3 more yellows finished, 3 more pinks, 3 more mints, and 3 more lilacs. I don't remember what all the colors are. And then I have 2 skeins each of 2 of cream and 2 in this cloud color. And I'm thinking I might use the cloud color to connect them all. I haven't decided. I may connect 2, with a set with this and a set with this, just to see which color goes better with the overall layout of the blanket. I hope that makes sense, because I'm not quite sure that made sense to me. To see which of these would look better with all these colors. There we go. So hopefully by the next podcast, I will have the other 2 colors finished, and hopefully 3 other mini granny squares like this to connect together. And then that will probably get put aside, because it's going to take me a while to connect them all, and I don't think that's going to happen before the summer. So here I am, and here we go. I am not following any specific pattern. I am just doing a simple granny square. I am using I don't have it up here. Okay. Whoops. I don't know what I dropped. I am using a 4.25 millimeter crochet hook. So that is a G. These are the Boyd crochet hooks. Not exactly my favorite, but this is the one I grabbed when I started doing this, and I don't like to switch crochet hooks in the middle of projects, because there could be slight differences, and I would prefer, when I'm doing something like this, for all the squares to come out nice and similar, so that I don't have to finagle with trying to put them together. So that is all I have for you guys in regards to whips. So I guess we will move on to acquisitions. So I have just a few acquisitions to share with you. I really would like to try my hand at making some color work socks. Maybe just around the cuffs. I don't think I ever want to do full color work socks, because why put all that work into something that's going to hide in a shoe? But at least the cuffs I could get people to see. But I knew doing them 2 at a time magic loop was not the way to go for me, because I tend to be very tight when I knit my my socks magic loop, and I like that because it makes the socks sturdier. But after watching so many other podcasters say that they, their first pair of colorwork socks never did wind up not fitting them, I decided I would try circular needles. When I first learned how to knit socks, I was knitting them on a 12-inch circular. Didn't really like that because I felt like that stretched out the sock too much. And I tried recently, or not recently, like maybe within the last year, I did try 9-inch circulars, and I felt that they were just a little too tight. And then a friend of mine gave me an 11-inch circular to try, and I felt like that would be too much like a 12-inch circular. So I went on the hunt, and I found 10-inch circular needles. Ooh, I could speak tonight. By Addie. And what I found interesting about them, is that they have 2 different sized needles. Let me get this. So here you could see one is very short and one is much longer. I have been knitting onto the longer one, and I just grabbed a little scrap just to see how it was, see how it would work, whether my hands could do it or not. And I've just made a little cuff, which will be taken out, but I kind of like them. So I bought 2 so that I could do I could knit the socks in tandem. The only thing is that it still can be tight when I first start. So I went up to, normally knit my socks 64 stitches around. And so this time I went up to 68, just to give me a little bit more room. And of course, the cast on edge, it's always tight the first like 2 rows, and then it starts to loosen up some. So one of my knitting friends, she loves working on her 9-inch circulars, and she said you really have to learn to be a loose holder of the needles when you're doing such a small circumference, and to always have your knitting needles at a 90-degree angle when you knit. And I never thought about it before, but when she said that, I started like looking at my needles. Oops, and I dropped the stitch. I started looking at the way I knit on my needles, and I believe that I tend to normally knit at a 90-degree angle with my needles, no matter what size they are. And now I can't get the stitch back on the needle. Urgh. Don't you hate dropping a stitch? It's so different when you drop a stitch in crochet because it doesn't go anywhere. But anywho, I am slowly getting the hang of it. And I think I might try a pair of colorwork socks with these. So we'll see. I think I'm still debating on whether I'm going to do my socks cuff down or toe up. I learned both ways. I tend to prefer to knit them toe up just because I can make them as tall as I want without fear of running out. So I will have to try and find a little colorwork pattern that I could do at the top, and we'll see what happens. So obviously this will be taken out because I just have this little thingy here. And so that is one acquisition. And then my other acquisition, I totally forgot I had even ordered them. This was a pre-order with Woolens and Nosh, and they came in last week. Totally forgot I had bought them. And apparently I had ordered the colorway Femme Fatale, which is a black, white, and gray stripe with a red mini. And I totally understand why I ordered this one. I read banned books. So I am looking forward to knitting both of these up. I may actually hold off on these and knit these in, when is banned book week? I think banned book week is in October. So I think I may work on these during banned book week in October this year. And that is it for my acquisitions. So I have been keeping track of my grams in and out. So at the end of this month, the first quarter of the year will be over, and I will share those stats probably in the next podcast. No, because the next podcast will not be the end of March. I will share them in the first podcast of April that I do. So now let's move on to books. So I have read 6 books in the last couple of weeks. First one up is Remarkably Bright Creatures. Very fascinating book. It is written by Shelby Van Pelt. It is about a relationship between an octopus and an elderly woman that cleans the aquarium at night. And there was also a second story in there of a young gentleman who, how would I explain him? Didn't quite have his shit together. And he winds up trying to find someone who he thinks is his father, because his mom basically was a drug addict and dropped the boy off at his aunt's house, and his aunt raised him, and he sort of drifted between jobs, getting fired or getting laid off, whatever. He loves his aunt. He is forever grateful to her for raising him, and he swears that he's, going to pay her back all this money that he has borrowed from her. And he comes across, I think it was a photograph, and he is led to believe the gentleman in this photograph is some rich dude that is out on the West Coast. So he researches the guy, he hops on a plane and heads out there. It happens to be the same location as where the aquarium with the octopus and the elderly woman work. The octopus is a little escape artist, and that's how the story gets very interesting. So I'm not going to share any more about that, but it was an excellent, excellent book. Next up, I have Back in a Spell by Lana Harper. It is part of a series, and now I can't think of the name of the series. I will put it down here. It is, let me see, I think it is the third or fourth book in the series. And I've read the first four. They're the first three, and this, I'm pretty sure, I think this is the fourth one in the series. So it is a particular town that has 5 witch families that are connected, and one family is kind of like the mayor of the other 4 witch houses. And they are having some issues amongst themselves, and so it's a quirky little romance that sometimes I read every now and again just to escape reality. Then I listened to Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Totally fun book to listen to. I managed to get through book 1 and book 2 of that series. So book 2 is Iron Flame. And I am getting ready to start the 3rd book, which is Onyx Storm. Highly suggest those if you haven't read those. Next up was a book I got for Christmas from my sister. My sister did the 12 Days of Christmas for me, and she gave me 2 books. One of them was All I Want for Christmas is a Vampire by Carolyn Sparks. Again, another quirky romance, a human and a vampire. It was a fun read. It was an escapism type read. Totally. Actually, I read that book at each night because I am trying to kick the habit of doom scrolling before I go to bed. So that book I actually physically read. Then I read Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. Totally full of all kinds of trigger warnings. The theme is a very, very dark romance, but the book starts with a whole list of trigger warnings. So there were trigger warnings of off-page rape, child abuse, blood play, stalking, past traumas, death of parents, domestic abuse, and all kinds of various dark sexual play in the book. I enjoyed the book very much. I thought it was very different from anything I have read in the past. I know there is a 2nd book coming out this summer. I will probably be reading that one as well. But if you are not into, not quite erotica, but pretty close, then this book is not for you. And then I just finished today the book called Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Again, this is a fantasy book. It's it starts with a girl, a young woman, and the area that she lives in what is called the 3rd ward, and it is like the poorest of the poor, and this There is a queen of their area who has been alive for 1,000 years. Nobody understands how she's managed to stay alive all these years. But the third ward is where they tend to put all the people that they don't really care about. Their food is extremely highly rationed. Their water is highly rationed. They only get 6 ounces of water a day. Don't ask me how these people live on only 6 ounces of water, but that was their ration. And the female character, I don't know why I can never remember names in books, but the female character has become an excellent thief after her mother died, and she wound up taking care of her and her younger brother. And she has figured out a way to head into other wards and siphon off extra water that is cleaner than what they normally get in the third ward. And she gets caught by a soldier there, but then she sort of tricks him by telling them that she's from the third ward, and there's all this, that the third ward has the plague and all these rumors going around about the third ward. And so the guard, immediately lets her go, and he takes off his gold gauntlet as if to think that, the plague is going to come through the gold or whatever. And so she grabs the gauntlet and takes off, which is, again, another huge offense. Long story short, too late. She gets caught. And then there's sort of like a King Arthur moment where she pulls this sword out, and that's where the Quicksilver comes in. And that's all I'm going to say about that one. But again, there are high sexual scenes, explicit sexual scenes that are shared in this story. So if that is not your cup of tea, I do not suggest you reading Quicksilver. And then I am currently reading The Demonic, and I can't remember the author's name, but it is another book that I am reading at night to, again, try and kick myself of the doom scrolling habit. And I've just started it. I'm only like into the first 3 chapters. The female main character, again, I think there was some abuse, so trigger warning. I believe there is abuse in this book. The woman's father passes away, and she hasn't been home. She actually doesn't even live in the States anymore. She lives in the UK with her husband and her 2 children. They all come back for the funeral and to basically, I guess, pack up the house and sell it. She didn't even want to go there. She wanted, nothing to do with this because of all the bad memories that happened there from the abuse. Her husband feels like she should go and sort of talked her into it because he felt like she really needed closure from the event. And when they get to the house, she's starting to, I think, have just a little bit of anxiety because she is remembering some of the things that happened to her, but they don't get into any specific, they have not gotten into any specific details yet at this point in the book. But the kids do go, and they go upstairs and they try to explore the house. And the chapter that I ended on last night is the boy turns around, was saying something to his sister, and sees something behind the sister and screams. And that's where I had to shut it off because that was the end of the chapter. And if I continued to read, I would be up even later reading the book. So I try to read 1 to 2 chapters a night to get me nice and sleepy, to not doom scroll, and then I go to sleep. And that is all I have for you guys this week. I would love to hear what you guys are reading. I am always looking for good suggestions. I read just about anything. I'm not all that great with nonfiction books unless it is a topic that I am highly interested in. But I love horrors. I love psychological thrillers. I love a good mystery. Fantasy is always a good thing for me. If it's a good story, I will read it. So if you have any suggestions, I am working on a list to get me through the spring, and maybe even starting to get a longer list together for the summer months. So if you have read anything good lately, please let me know in the comments below. Also, I just realized I forgot to share. If I will have links to all of my projects below. They will all be Ravelry links to my project pages, so you can see all the information on the projects. They will be linked to the patterns. So if you would like anything, you can click on something down there. And yeah, that is all. So on that note, I will bid you all a good night, because it is nighttime here. But for all I know, you could be watching this in the morning, so I bid you a good morning. But I am going to head upstairs and do my nightly routine and head to bed now. So I wish you all a lovely, lovely 2 weeks. Please leave me a comment. If you've enjoyed this episode, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you would, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and then ring that bell so you can be notified for my future episodes coming up. And I appreciate all of you that have already subscribed. This really does help my algorithm and my channel grow. And I will see you in 2 weeks. All right. Good night. Ciao, ciao. Love you guys.